All right, good morning. It's a little bit after 8:30, and you're at the Board of Public Works Bioenergy Work Session. I see a lot of great people here in the room today, so I'm glad that you're here to listen and participate. I'm sure we have some viewers online as well, too, so welcome. Today, we will be hearing from Energia, we'll be hearing from the Department of Public Works, and as a board here will be able to ask additional questions and hear all the information so we can be informed to make the best decision and move forward in this process. So our first item on the agenda, call to order. Our second item is the presentation, and I have Dar. He's going to stand up front and start us off.
Good morning, Commissioners, and good morning, everyone who took the time out of their morning to spend some time with us. I was thinking back last night through the process, and I think I mentioned earlier in the year, I think January marks our 8th year of working toward a new solution here in Kent County. In 2015, we kind of took a moment to take a look at our facilities and our fleet and the amount of diversion of material. And we realized that we thought we were doing better in terms of our recycling rates and our diversion, only to learn when we went through a waste characterization study that was sponsored through the West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, that we could be doing a lot better. And so anecdotally, we had seen all the pictures. Our operators every day see the hundreds and thousands of trucks moving through our system. And we realized that with that waste characterization study, we had an opportunity to finally put numbers with photos and anecdotal evidence. And what we learned was nearly 75% of what we throw away every day, whether it's in a commercial cart, a dumpster, or a residential cart, could be recycled if we got it into the right bin. So fast forwarding, then in 2016, we set a new mission and vision. In 2018, the Board of Public Works did two things. One is they approved the Sustainable Business Park Master Plan, and with that, they gave us 3 years to take a look at what alternatives could we have that would be different than moving forward with another landfill. South Kent Landfill will essentially be closed in full by 2030, and since that 2018 date, we've been working, we issued an RFP during the pandemic, which seems like a million years ago. How we pulled that off, I'm still not sure, other than we have a fantastic team. But this morning, we want to share with you what we have found and what we see, and help the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Public Works, and our community identify that there is a new and a different way to manage municipal solid waste as we move forward. So with that, we're going to walk through this morning a decision timeline, key decisions that the Board of Public Works and the Board of Commissioners will be looking at in the next number of months. Energia will present their findings and all the work that they've done, moving up to the 30% design and then the bid process and then renderings of the facility as it looks today. We'll talk about next steps. We're going to entertain as many questions, so there'll be a Q&A period, which will allow us to answer questions real time, and if there's questions that we need to answer and bring back to you at a later date, by all means, we're going to dig in and do that for you, because that's what we're committed to. And then, of course, there'll be public comment toward the end of the presentation. So I mentioned this, but our vision in DPW is to implement a sustainable materials management strategy, which is really a departure from kind of the old thinking around you use it once, you throw it away. Where it's more of a disposal strategy, a very linear approach, as opposed to trying to capture as much of that material as you can and bring it back into a value stream. And our mission is critical because it's really to be collaborative. Our entire process here is we knew that it wouldn't and shouldn't be just a public process, that it should be a public-private collaborative effort, bring the best thinking and the best policy around a direction that we could take into the future. And with this, I'm going to hand it over to Steve, and he's going to walk you through part of the conversation this morning.
Good morning. So there's a series of key decisions that are coming up for the Board of Public Works as well as the Board of Commissioners, and this kind of outlines where we've been, how we've gotten to this point, and then where these key decisions are moving forward. So in the timeline that you have in front of you, you can see where we sit today in terms of the Board of Public Works work session. We'll be spending the next several weeks on additional information gathering, answering questions that commissioners may have, and then an action request will come back to this board in July 13. That really then is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to look at this project. There are key decisions at that level, including countywide flow control and county bonding, and then the project itself. We anticipate that we'll be able to go through those meetings and those decisions coming to the end of August. If we do that, then we would actually be able to begin breaking ground on the Sustainable Business Park property, Phase 1, this fall, and create that as a site-ready project, and then with the Kent County Bioenergy Facility breaking ground next spring. Then we have about a 3-year construction / startup period before we would enact flow control, before we would enact and start paying off the bonds, before we would put in place a new system-wide tipping fee. So this hopefully is a timeline that you can go back to and kind of see where the key dates are as we move forward. On July 13, we'll be coming back with some action requests. The first is to show that the Kent County Bioenergy Facility is consistent with our solid waste management plan. The second is really the approval of the project itself with 3 key components. The first is the construction and service agreement with Energia. So again, the private-public partnership for the Kent County Bioenergy Facility, the countywide flow control ordinance, and then the county revenue bond. So a little bit on all of those in more detail. The service agreement and the construction agreement is really, it's a 25-year contract. It's about this, it has the delivery provision, which many of you are aware of, that we're guaranteeing that 400,000 tons of municipal solid waste, the feedstock required for the facility, shows up. It really has what we call a processing fee. So it's the arrangement with Energia for once the material comes in, that it needs to be processed through mixed waste processing. So it sets the terms of that processing. All of our insurance requirements, many of you are aware of insurance. We talk about it every year at Waste Energy. Same sort of approach here. We have to go through a lot of the same steps in terms of making sure that the facility itself is insured. All the default and remedy provisions. So we're putting in there really de-risking and making sure that we can move forward, they can move forward if things change and if there are differences once we go into startup. There are performance guarantees. So this service agreement really sets forth, here's what our expectations are at the DPW in terms of diversion, in terms of how things are going to be processed and all of those, and then what are the consequences if we don't meet those targets or if Energia doesn't meet those targets. All the facility design, the equipment specifications, the cost of construction, the Energia team will go through all of the bidding that's gone on and the actual project, but that's all included in this service agreement, as well as our operating parameters, how we're going to maintain this facility moving forward. And then there's inevitably an amendment process. So what we approve today, there's a process by which we would amend that service agreement as we get closer to operation. The next big item is the countywide flow ordinance. Again, the flow ordinance really guarantees that the 400,000 tons of MSW come to the Kent County Bioenergy Facility, but it also keeps waste to energy whole and functioning moving forward. As you'll recall, 2/3 of our population has lived in a flow district since the late 80s for waste to energy. We consider that a huge success, and we consider flow control essential, not only to supporting waste to energy, but if you recall, that's prevented an entire landfill from being created in our community. And so flow control not only helps the bioenergy facility, but it also makes sure that waste to energy continues past 2025 when that flow control and the agreements expire. The reason we want to do and are encouraging to do countywide flow control is rate equity. So one of the things that we heard and have heard for many years is that the 6 cities and the residents and businesses in the 6 cities have paid more as a tipping fee to support waste to energy than the rest of the county. We believe that waste to energy has benefited the whole county, and it is a county asset. And so this waste to energy, our transfer station, our recycling center, the new Kent County Bioenergy Facility, we believe that should be all supported by everyone in the county because everyone in the county benefits from that. So again, equity in that tip fee. The flow control ordinance would really designate the facilities for delivery. So it specifies waste to energy, North Kent Transfer Station, and then the Kent County Bioenergy Facility as disposal sites, as designated disposal sites for haulers. The ordinance defines the type of material. So we're focusing on municipal solid waste. We're not focusing on construction and demolition waste, industrial waste, biosolids. Any source separated material is all excluded from flow control. It's MSW. It outlines the process for exemptions. So as you may recall, waste to energy has 220 exemptions. These are loads that come in that either our scale house or a hauler or a business says this really isn't suitable to be processed at waste to energy, and then there's an exemption process that they go through. Same thing would apply here. Our desire is to get processable waste at these facilities. And so we want to be fair in that, and we believe that certain materials or a customer or a location, we would work through the process of exemptions and have that very detailed how people can go through that process. Again, it allows us to capture about 20% of MSW that's currently leaving the county. 80% of MSW touches one of our facilities today. So we're really focusing on the 20% that leaves the county to area landfills that we want to keep in the county in order to process. The ordinance is written in such a way that it would be effective when you pass it, or if you pass it later this summer, but the compliance date when it would actually be enforced and implemented wouldn't be until 2026. So there's about a 3-year window where we refine and where we work through that, where that's not an enforceable ordinance, but it is in effect. The reason we need flow control is similar to what we did with waste to energy. That is the guarantee that we have for the bond. So if we follow the same financing model that we did for waste to energy in 1985, the county issued a bond. Flow control guaranteed that the volume of waste would show up at that facility, and then we used those tipping fees to pay off that bond. At this point, we're looking at a 25-year bond. I think most of you have seen that. You'll see it in a little bit. It would be an $80 million bond for the facility. Again, flow control ensures that there's sufficient waste volume coming into the facility. But again, this would be all waste to energy, North Kent and Kent County Bioenergy Facility as disposal sites. Again, this represents about 20% of the total project budget. 80% of the project will come through private financing and funding. And then one other consideration as we move forward with the bonding is, does the county have the capacity to bond? And we've been assured that this $80 million would not impact credit ratings, that there is the availability of those funds. And then again, a guaranteed way of paying them off. So I'm going to turn this over to Energia to really walk through the technical components of the project, and then we'll come back up, talk a little bit about the broader sustainable business park, and then reiterate some of the key decisions that are coming our way.
Good morning, Board of Commissioners. Good morning, members of the public. My name is Andrew Dale. I'm one of the engineers at Energia, and I'll be walking through a little bit of an introduction to Energia as well as some of our other projects, and then we'll go through the overview of the facility itself. For those of you that may or may not know, Energia is a publicly traded company. We have hundreds of facilities around the globe. 12 of those are doing RNG currently today. And just a brief overview so you can see that we work in anaerobic digestion, we work in MSW recycling, many locations around the globe. And we bring all of that technology and processing ability to this facility and all those lessons learned from our facilities. Provide a custom facility for Kent County's waste. You can see here, this is a brief overview of Energia's capability and processing. So we deal with all types of trash, including residential and commercial MSW, as well as SSO. We'll bring that material to the Kent County Bioenergy Facility, process it, and have recyclable outputs, as well as extracting the organic food waste from that stream. That food waste will go through anaerobic digestion, and the product of anaerobic digestion will be renewable natural gas, as well as a dried fertilizer project for fertilizer product for land application. So this is just a brief overview of our current North American footprint. Over a couple of those projects on the next slides. So one of those projects that we built and designed the Michigan State Anaerobic Digester Plant. That was one of our first digesters that we built in North America. It's still operating today, and we still support that plant with spare parts and process engineering as needed. One of our newer facilities is in Victorville, California. This is producing right now about 300,000 or up to 300,000 MMBTU of RNG per year. It's digesting municipal biosolids as well as liquid food waste slurries from the region. Another facility similar to that in California is the Sterling Natural Resource Center. This is an Energia designed anaerobic digestion facility. This facility creates power from biogas. So we have the ability, as markets change or as the needs of the customer change, to either do RNG or to do power production at the plants. We also have a flagship organics extraction plant in Sun Valley, California. This is a waste management. And this facility processes 50 tons an hour of material to make an organic feedstock for digestion. So one of the reasons with the large shift of anaerobic digestion and making RNG is that many utilities and companies are seeking RNG, which is renewable natural gas, to decarbonize their operations. So these include many types of utilities, Fortune 500 companies, and a lot of states have already implemented, including Michigan, policies enabling and promoting utilities to procure renewable natural gas for their customers. And as you see, our facilities, our facility in Victorville, we sell that renewable natural gas to Toyota. They're using that to fill their CNG fleet when it comes into the Port of Long Beach. They're also using that for on-site hydrogen generation for their hydrogen cars. And they're also using it for on-site power to charge their vehicles, when they come off the ships. You can also see our Charlotte facility sells to Duke Energy, which is the local utility, so we have a power purchase agreement. Our Rialto facility is currently selling into the low-carbon fuel market in California. And our Rhode Island facility, we're selling to Irving Oil, which is one of the largest Canadian petroleum manufacturers, to help them decarbonize their operations for refining. Grand Rapids is also, spearheading decarbonizing vehicles with RNG. So the Grand Rapids wastewater plant is selling their RNG into the local fleet, into the DTE pipelines. And as you can see here, the city of Grand Rapids, with this partnership with DTE and Transportation Group, the Rapid, they're decarbonizing their fleets, similar to how California is decarbonizing their fleets with. So there is a market. There's local markets. There's also national markets for RNG, and it's a very healthy market that Energy is currently selling. We firmly believe there's a lot of markets out there for this gas that the Kent County Bioenergy Facility would produce. But just a overview of the project, as Dar and Steve mentioned, the facility is designed, or will initially start with 400,000 tons a year of MSW coming in. Facility is designed to process a maximum of 600,000 tons per year of MSW. We're also right now planning on just under 100,000 tons of SSO. And when we talk about SSO, that could be anything from source separated gannets from local restaurants or businesses, as well as depackaging operations or liquid waste from industry that may need a home, or product destruction for their expired products. The facility will generate a treated water, about 150,000 gallons. This will meet all of the pretreatment requirements for discharge. We'll also produce about 95,000 tons per year of recyclables that are currently landfilled. There'll be 650,000 MMBTU per year of renewable natural gas, which would equal about 8,000 to 9,000 homes, households, natural gas use per year. And there'll be just over 20,000 tons of dried digestate as a fertilizer product that can be land applied locally or mixed with compost to further add those nutrients into the compost. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick. We have a short video that we'll walk through and then go over the plant itself. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Patrick Nicole. I'm on the engineering side of the MSW for Energia. So what we're going to show you is what we did for 30% design, where we stand, all the renderings, where the plant is going, and what we can offer, and as well as pricing and stuff like that. So what we have to start with is just a quick video, a quick overview of the facility. So you can see, you're not going to see a mountain, you're not going to see a like disposal. What you're going to see is a engineering plant that's going to be able to convert material, receiving material, raw material, and convert it into renewable gas and recyclable. So we're going from the scale. As soon as you get in the facility, each different type of material is going to be sent to their own location. So that's going to keep the people safe. As you're going to see, we have multiple places. So the first building is going to be like the RNG plant, following by the wastewater treatment. So everything is going to be undercover. We have the digester. Why we want to keep everything undercover is because we have a odor control system. So everything is going to be clean. We also plan for a maintenance building. In that maintenance building, you also have a cleanup for the trucks. And then we have the self-haul as well as SSO coming. And finally, you're going to have your MSW tip floor. The tip floor also, you're going to see, is going to be able to use as a transfer station. And everything from the street, you're going to be able to see that it's just going to be a manufacturing plant you're going to see. So for the visitors, they have a separate entrance, keep them away from the trucking. We have a nice office. On the third floor of that office, you're going to have a learning center. The learning center can actually be used also for, internship or sending people from university doing some studies. From the learning center, you can actually walk out on the platform, be able to see the equipment, feel the system, but also having some cameras that you can actually keep people safe inside. So if we look at the plant, it's quite a huge plant, but I mean it's going to be very, very well separated. So what you have is you have the scales, you have the processing building, you're going to have the office, the digester, you have the RNG plant, the wastewater treatment plant, the odor control, and then the maintenance building. Where you can see everything has been permitted. It's also been permitted for a 80,000 square feet of building area for future use. That area is already planned to be a hard surface, so we have enough of green surface to accommodate that. So that's going to be a future tenant that can be used for any kind of other technology that's going to come and be attached to this facility. You have some hard copies that we distribute, so it's just in our plan view. The tip floor is going to be designed for 650,000 tons per year. Even if we start going at 400,000 tons, the building is already planned to be able to process 650,000. In the processing building, what you have is the tip floor and transfer station. The MSW sort line. MSW sort line is being, we're going to use some optical sorters. We're also going to use some AI and mechanical sorting device. All of those equipment, they've been used in many other facilities. Matter of fact, at your recycling plant, you have those technology that you can actually go and see working. Recyclable, just like your recycling plant, you're going to have the plastic, some fibers, metals, aluminum, and then all the baling storage that's needed for that. We have the organic processing. This is a little bit different than any plant that you've seen. Using the ORExpress, we're going to be able to extract all the organics to be sent to the digester. You also have the SSO process. While we do the SSO process, you're going to be able to have merchant material coming to that facility. So if in the future you see a decrease on organics, you can actually bring more material from the SSO plant to really keep your RNG at the highest level possible. We have the digested processing. So everything, once again, it's undercover, all in one location. Self-haul. So you have the self-haul for all the moms and pops that are coming to drop their material. Keep in mind the self-haul and the tipping floor, they also communicate. So if on a Saturday morning you have an overflow of people coming, we've seen that in many locations, you can actually use the transfer station, the tip floor, to accommodate your customer. So that's a very well design, and they are on the corner, so they are really away from everybody else. They're not going to interfere with any trucking, so keep people safe at that point. We have the office. So the office, once again, state of the art. We have 3 level, and the last level is going to be for learning center. So from the street, what you're going to see is you're going to see a manufacturing plant. So that really going to attract other tenants. They're not going to say, okay, we're going to be beside a dump like they were talking in the 60s. Well, it's a manufacturing plant that you're going to see. So it's very attractive. And the office is the state-of-the-art office. We have, all the commodities there. So all of this, how much is that going to cost? Well, we're looking at net capex of about $380 million. For sure, we need to add like some contingency. We're talking about 12.5% at this point because we're on 30% design. That's going to fluctuate a little bit. We expect that's going to go down as soon as we do some value engineering and also being more precise on the project. To that, you need also to add that we're going to have some more grant monies. There's the RRA that's going to come also to reduce the project. For the RRA, though, we need to make sure that the system we're going to start building it in 2025. But that fluctuates. What's going to be in for Kent County? We're talking about $80 million, around $80 million of CapEx. What we're going to extract from that facility, and that's being calculated, it's going through all the mass balance, and that's really a starting point. We're just going to grow from there. So you have all the material going to the AD. We have material that's going to go to the recyclable. So everything is going to be segregated, and you're going to have different bales for that. And you also material going to the waste to energy, because they still need to have some material going there for their production. And we still have some material going from landfill. So from the get-go, we know we're going to achieve that 50% and even higher. And then with the pathways of just increasing the diversion from landfill. And that all of this also is being calculated on the using the latest material characterization that's been done by GBB. You guys did a very good job having that material characterization. So we're able to do a very nice system for that. And just like we're talking, this project's about a 3 years project. So in 2026, that's when we're going to start doing the commissioning of the system. So commissioning is really starting, sending material of that facility, start processing, and just ramping up to make sure that in 2027 we're going to be fully commercial operation.
All right. Do we have an opportunity for some questions now, or do you want to keep going? Okay.
Sorry, it's faster if we just go. So again, the Kent County Bioenergy Facility is the anchor tenant at the Sustainable Business Park. And so we wanted to give you a quick update on the rest of the project, if you will. So the Sustainable Business Park, the broader 250-acre location, you can see where the bioenergy facility will sit, and then there are additional parcels. We've gone through and been approved by the Door Township Planning Commission for a planned unit development, so the zoning is secured for this site. It has to go through one more approval. We've also been approved by Allegan County Solid Waste Planning Committee that this is consistent with their plan. A reminder, Allegan County also dedicated ARPA dollars to this project. Both the Kent and Allegan Road Commission, we're working with them to put in a Class A road to service this facility. We're working with Eagle on our wetland permits, our solid waste processing permit, looking at all the utilities that will need to come to the site, not only to service these tenants, but also as a way to take that renewable natural gas and put it back into the system, as well as getting ready for all the site preparedness and grading that would begin potentially yet this year to, again, get this shovel ready for the Kent County Bioenergy Facility, but also secondary tenants. One question that's come up is, are you going to be coming here next year for another bond request for a secondary tenant? The way we're structuring all those secondary leases is really they're standalone entities. They will need to stand up on their own. The benefit is they're right next to a facility that has raw material for their use, as well as other benefits of co-locating in this location. I've invited Tim Moraz from The Right Place to talk a little bit about some of the secondary tenants. And Tim has been with this project since the beginning, but really has been spearheading and keeping those other conversations going. As we move forward with the main anchor tenant, we want to make sure our secondary tenants are also understanding the project and getting in line.
Morning, everybody. I just want to give you guys just kind of a quick update. As Steve had mentioned, The Right Place has been a partner in this project for the last probably 4 or 5 years. Ever since we had some beginning visioning discussions at DPW about what would a sustainable effort look like other than building another landfill. And although we're talking this morning about, this project alone, as you saw, it's about $380 million, about 50, 60 new jobs. The reason The Right Place decided to get in the trash business is because we see this as a new industry opportunity. Since we've announced this, since coming out publicly, GBB and The Right Place, partnering kind of out in the industry to kind of make this project known. We've already had 8 other companies from around the country and two internationally approach us interested in being part of the larger Sustainable Business Park. And so my bottom line comment to you guys this morning is, although we are looking at Energia this morning, which is a great, a new great partner and a potential anchor tenant, there is already pent-up demand for what comes next. After this initial announcement. So, like I said, The Right Place, it continues to be, supportive of this project. We do see this as a new innovative high-tech, industry that really no one else in the country is really taking this unique public-private approach to it. So, as an economic development organization, we're in full support of this project. So, thank you.
So the big question everybody asks is, how much is it going to cost? So we know now through the bidding process what the Kent County Bioenergy Facility costs and what it looks like and what it will cost to operate. We've been working with Plant Moran, and GBB and others to go through a financial modeling. Because, as you know, the DPW is running a fleet of facilities, and we'll need to do that moving forward. We want to continue our waste reduction education. We want to continue our household hazardous waste collection. We want to continue the opportunity to have single stream recycling in our community. We want to continue to stand up waste to energy. We have to keep the whole system running, not just this new facility. And so what we've done is really look at our operations going out almost a decade to say, what does our future look like? What additional capital and operating expenses are we going to need? How many scale house attendants are we going to need in 2029 to support this system? That's the level of detail that we're trying to get to understand how this decision really fits into the broader system. We've calculated the volume estimates for MSW that would be subject to flow control based on our own scale house data and what we get through our surcharge data. We've looked at volume estimates for market rate material. So as you recall, North Kent Transfer Station will still be able to take material that isn't MSW. South Kent Landfill will continue to operate while this new facility is moving forward. So we'll still be taking market rate material there while those facilities are open. We need to calculate that in as part of this new phase. We are looking at really, it's I should say 2030 closure of South Kent Landfill and what that looks like. We have to continue our ongoing environmental compliance. We have a legacy of landfills, so there are 3 landfills we still need to take care of. We still need to do PFAS pretreatment, whatever else is going to come down the line. That's still an obligation we have as the DPW and the county. We're looking at what does it cost to transfer material. So the goal is to get as much processable material to the right facility. So we have to figure in all of that transporting costs. We have to figure in transferring non-processable waste and the disposal of that waste. We're looking at revenue projections for our commodities. So, the recyclables, the renewable natural gas, the fertilizer, as well as the power purchase agreement we have with Waste to Energy and all the commodities coming out of our recycling center, right? And then we have to look at inflation, depreciation, taxes, insurance, refurbishment. I mean, this is a spreadsheet, folks. So when we do all of that and have to and think what will a system-wide tip fee look like for MSW subject to flow control, right now we're in the $87 to $94 a ton range. As you recall, landfill in October is at 55. Our waste to energy is at 75. So that gives you some context. Again, this would be a tipping fee that would not go into effect until flow control becomes enforceable. So we're really looking at this being the 2026, 27 projected tipping fee. As was mentioned briefly, the numbers you're looking at today include some resources that we've already secured and some that are on the table. So the big one is $100 million ITC, Infrastructure Reduction Act funding through the federal government. Just to note that we would need to begin construction on this project before January 2025 to be eligible for those dollars, but that's $100 million for this project. We just secured a grant through the state, through the Public Service Commission, $5 million last week. Eagle has allocated money to this project. We have additional grants. We're moving to the next phase on an EPA grant for $4 million as well as an EDA grant. So, over the next 3 years, as this project goes, we're going to continue to be pursuing funding opportunities, continuing to refine that model. That's our commitment. We want to drive that tip fee as low as we possibly can. We understand the consequences of raising that, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to secure more resources that keep that in line. So, big picture, small font, big picture. What we're doing, so if we get approvals here at the top, again, we would begin site work on the Sustainable Business Park. That would start to lay the groundwork for Kent County Bioenergy Facility to break ground. Again, not being fully operational until 2017 was when it would be really accepting the full volume of waste. 2027, sorry. At the same time, we're working with these secondary tenants. As Tim mentioned, and as I think we've mentioned before, we can begin project development agreements with these secondary tenants very quickly. They really are waiting for this set of decisions to be made, and then we can really begin that process. So while this is moving, we're moving forward on the other tenants to really begin that whole sustainable business park concept. The bonding and financing would happen later this year and into next year. Again, bond repayment wouldn't begin until after the project, or in the window of when the project is operational. We need to start repaying those through the new revenue brought in from tipping fees. Again, the flow control ordinance would be effective but not enforced. And then we would work with our technical committee over really the next year, including representatives from the hauling industry, environmental community, municipalities, to really continue to put the rules in place, the procedures in place around that ordinance. So the ordinance is the policy, but we also need administrative rules and other things to support that. And then really in 2025, the flow control in effect for waste to energy expires. So our goal is that we get pretty close to that expiring, where the new flow control comes into play, or at least people can see that it's going to be in play within a couple months. And then that really starts the new process. And then that's when the new system-wide tipping fee would go into effect for MSW. If we decide not to do those things, then we have some other sets of decisions. So the alternate path is really, we would be coming back to this group for landfill approval next year, is to begin the permitting process for that, which would go over the next several years in order to be open by 2030. Additionally, we have a big set of decisions to make around waste to energy when flow control ends. That facility really needs to change its composition in order to stay effective and honestly stay in business. So that's another big decision on the radar. So we just wanted to give you some sense of what happens next in this whole chart. I won't go through our decision-making again, but you can again see where we're sitting, and really it's a busy summer of nice, big, wonderful decisions. So with that, I will stop and we can answer questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you for all the details and information. I assume my colleagues here have a number of questions, so feel free to ask away. Who wants to start us off? Commissioner Yunker.
I guess this is probably more a question for Tim. I read an article.
Gotcha. Two great questions. The first question regarding Styrofoam, unfortunately, right now, of the 8 companies that I mentioned, Styrofoam is not one of them. We do have a local company that does it once or twice a year. But there is opportunity, obviously, and Steve Simmons can talk to this if he wants to follow up, is what we're finding is what communities want necessarily doesn't drive the industry. It's what industries can get revenue on is what what drives industries. So, that Styrofoam market, we're just not seeing there's consumer demand for it, and there's municipal demand for it, but in terms of the industry, we haven't seen it yet. In terms of the battery discussion, yes, it's actually one of the things that the Right Place is looking at more broadly. Even within the last, I would say, 3 months, we've started an internal study to look at not just battery production itself, but the total life cycle, of a lithium-ion battery. Partly because it seems like we are in the middle of several contentious projects right now, Big Rapids, so with a battery plant up there, but. There are continued discussions on battery life cycle deconstruction, assembly and recycling operations. And we are courting several companies that are looking at Michigan for that, not just because of this new project that we have, but also because of the existing LG plant that we have in the Holland Zeeland area. And so when you look at it, one of the things we track is something called location quotient. It's a big fancy term for basically what is the concentration of a certain employee type in a given community. So when you look at the workforce that's attached to all of the pieces that support the battery, the lithium-ion battery, the manufacturing process, that location quotient is 11.3 right now in West Michigan. It's an index number, so the index is 1. 1 is normal across the nation. If we're at 11.3, that means we have 11 times the concentration of battery-associated workers here. So there definitely is opportunity. Most of those are under NDA right now, but we are looking at that. Not styrofoam, but we are looking at the battery.
All right, other questions? Commissioner Pakla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this question's for Dar and Steve. Thinking about the operator agreement that the Department of Public Works would enter with Energy, I'm wondering if you have some high-level details on the ways in which it would be similar or dissimilar to the waste-to-energy operator agreement that we currently have.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Great question. When we developed the service agreement, which of course is still in draft form and we're continuing to fully inform it, I think we're at about maybe 90 or 95% development. The template that we used actually was the waste-to-energy facility, which has worked well. Our facility, the waste-to-energy facility, has been operating since 1990. There was a construction agreement along with a service agreement. Now there's a service agreement. We're using our third operator. So Ogden Martin was the developer and operator. They actually bankrupted after developing the facility. Covanta emerged out of that. Our facility never skipped a beat. And today, because Covanta made a decision to no longer want to operate a municipally owned facility, we've moved forward with a new service agreement with Vicinity. So it's the basis of the agreement was built around the waste energy facility, and it's proven out well here in Kent County.
Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe it's right place, Dar, Steve, just several folks. So when it comes to the development of the business park, I think there's 60-some jobs at Energia, but overall, what kind of economic impact? The park fills up, the number of jobs that's kind of estimated. Obviously, there's construction, it's kind of that trickle down. A lot of different things will be affected. Has anyone looked at what kind of total impact this could potentially have on our local economy?
In terms of an official economic impact, no, we have not done one yet. It's something we can certainly explore. Anecdotally, one of the things I can say is not just with Energia, but with all of the companies that we're currently working with, it's not the traditional manufacturing jobs to investment ratio that we've come to know over the past 30, 40, 50 years. Where you would have, for a $10 million investment, you'd have 60 jobs. For, $300 million investment, you'd have, several hundred jobs, up to 1,000 jobs. That's not the case in these. I mean, you're looking at a $380 million investment and it's, 50 to 60 jobs. It's just, it's not that type of an industry. So, I would hesitate to give, to shoot a number through a microphone, but I hope that gives you a sense of, not to expect 10,000 jobs at the sustainable business. But there will be clearly a significant amount of capital investment that will go down there, so.
All right, thank you. I just think it's important I mean, you're fine, Tim, but I guess to me, it's part of the puzzle, right? It's part of what we need to be looking at. We have a significant investment here, and I think we gotta know what are we getting back? What's our community getting back as well? I mean, there's lots of different things, but that's an important piece for me to at least, again, guesstimate what some of those impacts will be.
Good question. Commissioner McLeod?
Thank you, Chair. So this information was really great. I think that it has definitely explained a lot of the questions that I had in terms of how all of this would fit together. Just in terms of thinking about how this facility would fit into the state's plan to move us to 100% clean energy by 2035, how would this move us towards that goal?
Need to get my steps in, so I'm not going to use that microphone. I use this one. It really focuses two parallel paths, and this is one of the interesting things that I've observed in the nearly 10 years that I've been director. Environmental policy, solid waste policy, and energy policy often run parallel with each other. They don't tend to intersect much. And I think where this project and the recent changes to Part 115 of the Act 451 that was adopted by the legislature late last year and then signed by the governor, does a few things. First of all, for the first time, I think the state is looking at what's called sustainable materials management, meaning they want counties and communities and industry to capture the value of material that otherwise is in a linear path going to disposal. You use it once, you throw it away. When waste energy was envisioned in the 1980s, it was envisioned in a way that it was to reduce the dependency on landfill. And then Chair Vern Ehlers of the Board of Public Works never wanted a community to have to go through the siting of another landfill in Kent County. And that was after South Kent landfill was sited in Byron Township. I think where it really aligns well is, first of all, I think we're pretty clear that the renewable natural gas path is a path that the state of Michigan is pursuing. Consumers Energy is looking to decarbonize. DTE is looking to decarbonize. I think Energy also shared a wider look at that across the country. So I believe for the first time, this project and the various state laws that help drive some of those things are beginning to align. The Public Service Commission has issued or has indicated to us that they're going to provide a $5 million, Michigan Public Service Commission, excuse me, $5 million grant to support this project, and it's because it's renewable natural gas. And so that tells me that the Public Service Commission and the state of Michigan and the legislature is attempting to align the funding around policy and drive some of those projects. So in my mind, I think it aligns really well with where the state wants to go in the future.
Commissioner Pecla?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this question is for the Energia team, but it might also be a little bit for Dar and Steve. One of the things we've heard about with waste to energy recently is that the waste characterization or the shift of our waste has resulted in that operational challenges relative to the plant. And I'm wondering, we heard a little bit about how we might be able to balance with source separated organics, the material that would be going into the mixed waste processing. Wondering if you might expand a little bit on that in terms of thinking about waste characterization long term and the ways in which you're building that sort of resiliency into the system.
Well, I'll allow Energy to answer that directly, but I think the example that we would use within our fleet today is our recycling education center. That facility was designed around a recycling stream that was 2007-8. That facility was built in 2009, opened in 2010. The world has changed 13 years later. Virtually no one reads a newspaper. The online shopping and the amount of corrugated cardboard in the stream has radically changed. Single-serving containers, beverage containers in particular, seem to continue to tick up, and fewer people are returning their bottles and cans to the grocery store or retailer, and many are being thrown away, but many are going into the recycling cart. What did that mean for Kent County? That means our facility put in an eddy current to be able to pull aluminum containers out without hand sorting it, so that's all mechanical. Last week, Nick Vandervin, our deputy director, guided AMP Robotics to place 3 robotic sorters in at the recycling center. We have put in new optical sort systems. We've put in an OCC or corrugated cardboard screen so that 6 people don't have to try to pull cardboard. That machine now does it automatically. Point being is that we adapt. We all have to adapt. It's always changing. And we've been able to do that, and we anticipate that by making sure that we have the revenue available to make those pivots as they need. But I'd like to have Energia speak directly to the organics.
Yeah, like we said, the system is fully automated, and I mean, you're completely right. The material is changing. We call that the evolving tons, and it's been changing a lot lately because of how people behave. Not only that is we have an increase of cardboard, but also the packaging is changing. If you remember, you were calling, you're buying a shirt at Amazon before it came in a box. Now it came in a pouch. Okay, so it's changing. So what we're doing before that was more mechanical, cannot be mechanical. So we're, instead of looking at how the material behave, we're looking really at the material itself by using optical sorters. The robots, that's a great addition, but what's even greater is they are using AI. So it's not just looking at this is type of plastic, but we're looking at which type of plastic it is. And that goes to the point that you can actually have all the material being looked at, online. With the cloud, you know exactly what the material is, has been processed on your facility. And to the next level, you're going to see soon that you can actually see on the PET bottles, you're going to be able to tell, well, this area is having more, Pepsi product versus Coke product. And that's all the information you can actually get to your customer and bring more people. And in the future, making the decision, okay, if we see less PET bottles, what we're going to do in the future. Or if there's a material that's not been targeted, then an increase of it, okay, what we can do to modify the system to go and target that material. So all the technology is being introduced here. We know it's going to be even better in the future, but the AI that we put in this facility really going to give you a chance to have that facility for 25 years.
Yeah, Commissioner Janes.
This is directed at Mr. Mraz. I'm not sure if you can answer this or not, but can you share, without sharing the names of the additional tenants, the types of opportunities they may be converting into usable products? Just curious if there are some details you might be able to share.
Yeah, in general, I can speak to them. We have 3 companies alone that are very interested in our food and ag industry here, and the byproducts of both of those. And so, as was mentioned earlier, I don't know whether it was Steve or Energia that mentioned it, but being a region that is a huge food processing industry industry sector, unfortunately, it would make you cry how much product is destroyed before it even hits the consumer, simply because expiration dates, product exceeds the temperature controlled parameters for a period of time, and then they have to destroy it. Right now, there's a company or 2 that are trying it that are very small in the area to upcycle that as feed for cattle and hogs and things like that. But there's opportunity to turn that into a higher and better use. So food and ag is one of them. Obviously, a lot of plastics. One of the challenges we're facing with a lot of these companies is, I guess fortunately or unfortunately, there is a finite amount of MSW that comes in. So it's how much of that tonnage will go to Energia, how much of it is available then after the Energia process is sorted out to somebody else. And so there is a tremendous interest in plastic as well. So ag, food, plastics, most of them. There may be 1 or 2. Oh yeah, so we actually do have a company. Never mind what Dard just tapped on. But we do have a company that's actually interested in producing actually a physical product out of fibrous materials. So it could be a variety of fibrous materials. Again, ag product waste, MSW waste, organic waste, post-processing waste. But actually building a physical product out of it instead of turning it into a feedstock for cattle or energy or something like that. Actually putting something back into the market, a producible product. Yeah. So without going into too much detail. So thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Chair. I have several, so if other people want to jump in, and that's fine. Some of these are a little bit easier than others. A quick question for Energia, just out of my own curiosity. What is the other facility in the state of Michigan that you're currently operating? I know we had MSU, and then I don't think we mentioned the other one.
The other facility that we have is at the Andrews University in Berrien. Their dairy has some of our equipment for handling dairy manure at their facility.
Okay, thank you. That was mostly out of my own curiosity. but-
Yes, no problem.
One of the questions I had was about the timeline. I just wanted to make sure, the way I interpreted it with the flow control ordinance is that, obviously we've seen a lot or a little in the news about Rialto and that situation with the compliance issue, but I just want to clarify that it looks like that wouldn't be a problem the way we've laid out this timeline, that the ordinance would go into effect and then compliance would not go into effect until the time when we go online, but that would be simultaneous, correct? That's correct. Okay. I just know that, it's just front of mind because we're seeing what's happening there. And I know one of the other questions I had kind of surrounding that, and I've heard the reassurances, we've heard them from DPW, but when we, obviously as a publicly traded company, we get to see information about Energia's finances that we wouldn't with some other ones, so I kind of feel for you guys with that because you get to enjoy all that stuff. But when we see headlines that talk about earnings calls and capital light strategy, we get a little bit concerned. We heard from staff, and I definitely trust what they're hearing from you guys, but because you're sitting here in front of us too, I just wanted to see if we could get some reassurance that, whatever's happening with that conversation isn't intended to affect what's happening with this project.
Thank you for the question, and, we understand your concerns. So one of the way we do our project financing, it's all the projects need to stand on their own merit. So all the financial revenue, income, and expenses for this project would be outlined beforehand. So that would involve the tip fee. We would have our private financing in place before we begin construction. So we'd have all the funds in place before we have construction. With the flow control ordinance, that provides the minimum revenue to repay that financing. And then on the back end, all of the additional revenue share on the recyclables as well as the RNG is value back to the county after all the expenses are paid with the service fee.
Sure. Okay, that's helpful. I appreciate that. I'll do one more, and then I'll see if other commissioners have questions, Chair. I don't want to take up all this time on a monologue here. The other question I had, kind of related to the conversation about the cost. We saw with the Grand Rapids biodigester facility that ended up costing a lot more in the long run than was originally anticipated. I know we have as much confidence as we can have in the estimates, but for DPW staff, should that happen that we run over on cost, how will the cost be borne? Will that be borne by the county or by Energia, or will we split the increases? What does that look like? I know we've got a contingency built in, but if we go beyond that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Two ways that we look at it. One is we would be anticipating, we would not bond more, and that would be Energia would be stepping up to cover those costs. I think the other important thing to point out is that the facility that would be built is going to reflect the facility that's operating today in Rialto, which is a technical success. So you're using proven technology, a proven design, and you're simply transplanting that here. So it's just a matter of building it here, as opposed to the first time you might build something and then have to continue to refine it and to get it to completely, to work properly. That's the other piece too, is potential, the reality is that we'll begin to take waste in Q4 or Q1 of 2024. It takes a year to get that facility completely up and running. And those costs of of that startup and the commissioning is actually built into the cost that was reflected this morning on the slide. So those types of things are being built in. One, proven technology, it's already been built somewhere else. The commissioning is a part of the total cost of the package, and Energia would be covering the cost of that part of the operation.
Okay, that's helpful, and I think that it does, certainly understanding that this is, as you said, something that's been technically proven, not something we're going out and creating on our own makes me feel a little better. But things happen and things come out that we don't know what might happen. So I just wanted to ask about the cost.
Yeah, I think if I could add, Commissioner.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So, and I think we made this comment earlier this week, is that we're leading edge, not cutting edge. Where I think we are cutting edge is that we're taking two facilities, mixed waste processing and anaerobic digestion, and we're co-locating them on the same campus. Why would we do that? We would do that because we are taking the non-value add out, which is transportation between the two facilities. So that's where a lot of the cost savings and the synergy occurs by having these two facilities co-located. You can look at anaerobic digestion systems around the world and say they work. You can look at mixed waste processing facilities as standalones and they work. We're simply co-locating them in the same building and on the same campus.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, other questions? Commissioner Burrow.
Just a few more, and it's probably going to be for you, Dar or Steve. And so obviously, there's a few of us here that's already been in the flow control area that's been kind of paying our fees over the last 40 years with the waste to energy. So obviously, there's asking the residents of Kent County to pay more. Right, so it's going to be on the back of the residents. Also, we have, the balance of, hey, is this just the right thing, right? Is it just the right thing? So I recognize both. Also, when it comes to the business park, it's my understanding, right, and I guess it's more for everyone here, but just to verify, all these sites are going to be leased, and that money is going to be going back to, DPW, and does that help potentially reduce the fees, the tipping fees? I mean, what's the thought without those dollars that would come in? And then I got a couple other things after that question.
Sure, thanks. So the way we operate our business today, we operate it by business unit. So we look at each facility in our fleet, and with that, we do a rate study. And the rate study evaluates two things: our non-tipping fee revenue and our tip fee revenue. And we line out all of our non-tip fee revenue, so sale of recyclables, sale of electricity. We receive royalties today on landfill gas from the South Kent landfill. We have a partnership with Energy Development Limited, and we generate electricity there. 3.2 megawatt of electricity goes to the grid. That's built in. We receive renewable energy credits and other carbon credits, sale of scrap coming from various locations. All those are lined out, and in the future, any of those lease payments for the other properties, for other tenants, would be a part of that non-tip fee revenue. So that is intended then to drive down and reduce to every extent possible the actual tip fee that we have to charge at each facility. In the future, we're going to look at them individually, but build out them holistically with one fee. But the lease that we would charge at the other locations would help offset future cost. The other thing that we're looking at is that it's important that as we look at these future tenants, if they are helping us drive toward higher diversion rates, and they're helping us drive those other non-monetary things, that's how we look at how much should we charge. If they're helping us divert another 10%, then how do we set up that lease so that it's attractive to them and to us, and brings that company to the Kent County facility?
All right, so just as we were talking about this today as well, I just thought about, could we set up, I mean, most of this is in Allegan County, right? So the tax base is not helping Kent County with these folks coming in. I mean, obviously, we're doing some good, but it's not helping us. Have we thought of a DDA type of program, or a TIF, or something that the business owners that do come in here are paying some taxes that would help that would go to DPW that could also help the resident of Kent County.
We looked at that initially, didn't take that very far, but certainly it's something that we could talk to Door Township. Jeff Meiling, the supervisor's here this morning with Allegan County as well. We took a little different approach to the model, but we could certainly sit down and have those conversations and see where that could take us.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Did you have any more to your list that you want to?
Yeah, I had, thank you, Chair. I just had two more on the financing piece. I think they're closely related. So, Steve had that nice slide about the grant funding, the additional funding. So where are those numbers being applied? I just want to understand, where are we seeing the savings? And then my understanding is we've got basically one big bucket for most of the bioenergy facility, and then there's the smaller bucket, the 25, 30 million for the infrastructure piece. So I just want some clarification on where those finances will be applied.
Yeah, so the 100 million would be applied to the capital cost on the Kent County Bioenergy Facility. The 5 million Public Service Commission would be applied to capital cost of the bioenergy facility. The 4 million from Eagle would be applied to the business park itself, so that would be getting the site shovel ready. The 4 million from the EPA would be applied to the bioenergy facility. The 2.5 million from Economic Development Administration would be applied to the business park. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's,
And are we seeing those figures when we're talking about what the total cost, I mean, when we're figuring we're looking at a total investment, are we including that into what we're looking at? I don't imagine we just picked up $100 million that we weren't aware of. It'd be great if you were going to tell me that right now, but I don't think that's what you're going to tell me.
that is all built into the modeling on the net cost, net CapEx or capital cost for the construction, and then the overall tip fee are reflective of those numbers. And they'll be going, and so we're still doing some value engineering with the general contractor, we being more on the Energia side. But there's all those things occurring that are, this goes up, that goes down, which is why it's taken us this much time. And I think Steve described that spreadsheet. It's Plant Moran has been alongside of us for a number of months, making sure that we've captured, to the best of our ability, every last dollar within our system, including the Kent County Bioenergy Facility, looking forward, factoring in non-tip fee revenue and tip fee revenue. We would consider this non-tip fee revenue.
Okay. And then the last piece I had a question about, it related, is just, we talked, when we first talked about the project development agreement, we talked about the bonding and what type of bonds were available to us. So the revenue supported bond or a general obligation bond to the county. I know we didn't have a feeling for which way we were intending to go, but were we intending to kind of seek the general obligation or a revenue-backed bond on the enterprise for DPW?
So it's my understanding it would be a revenue bond. I think Jeff Dodd is here that might help inform us better. Jeff left.
He was here.
He was here. I'll talk to him after this. My best understanding where we stand today, working with bond counsel and those that have come alongside us with the bonding strategy, is that it would be a revenue bond with a specified revenue source, being the tip fee, which is insured and guaranteed by the flow control. So that's the path that I see. Could that change? Possibly. I'm probably not the best one to inform on that, though.
Sure. Okay, great. Thanks, Dar.
Commissioner Pecla.
One last question. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding sort of what the long-term benefit is when we're thinking about this. And I'm reflecting back to the tour that we just went on where we literally got out on top of the mound of trash that was actively being buried at the landfill. And it's the intention of this process that there is a very real path forward when we combine our anchor tenant of Energia and all of the 8+2 plus however many future tenants at the Sustainable Business Park, that we have a future here in Kent County that doesn't involve trucks going up to the top of a landfill, dumping out their trash, and then us burying over it.
When we established and look at the hierarchy that both the state and EPA is using, and we look at our fleet of facilities today and what it was intended to do, what we found in 2007-8 when we came out of that recession, because our other facilities were fully utilized, the amount going to landfill increased dramatically. And I do think it is a visceral experience, because everything up there will kill you if you let it. When you're at the top of the landfill and you feel the vibration, and you're standing on 150 feet of trash, and there's 7 million tons of trash buried at the South Kent landfill. And then you look at the fact that we have processed better than 5 million tons, almost 6 million tons at the waste to energy facility. And when that facility is done, when it comes to conclusion, when it's at the end of its life, you can take it down and you can build something new. South Kent landfill, and the fact that as a director, I need to make a recommendation to our Board of Public Works to construct another landfill. We make that decision in 2025. You go into permit, design, construct, then you operate it for 30 years, and then you close it, and then you have 30 years of post-closure care. A decision that our Board of Public Works faces in 25 is a decision that affects our community in 2090. And that's the sobering part for us, knowing that there are newer technologies. Landfilling in its day, and it still has its place, but we think that we can recapture most of the value that we're throwing away today. And I remember meeting Jeff, and I'm sure Jeff will have some comments later this morning, Jeff Meiling, the supervisor of Door Township. We met for the first time when I became director. He goes, I became township supervisor, and one of the first things I learned is that there's a landfill going to be constructed in our township, and there's nothing I can do about it. And what I wouldn't want to have happen, and what I think is sobering for all the commissioners to consider, whether it's Door Township, or whether it's Cannon Township, or another township in Kent County that faces down the fact that a landfill has to be constructed, you're taking that property out of production, whether it's farmland today, houses tomorrow, commercial development after that. You've taken a piece of property that after you're done with it, it kind of ruins the neighborhood, and there's nothing else you can really do with it. We have Sparta landfill, Kentwood landfill, now the North Kent landfill. The best that we'll ever do is probably place solar on it, which is a great thing. But we've been managing Kentwood landfill since the 1970s, and we're not even in our 30-year closure, post-closure yet. I mean, it's like in perpetuity. So we think about all those things. You think about economic development, you think about taxes, you think about land use, you think about recapturing this material and putting it back into manufacturing. You can look at it many different ways, but I think there's something there for everyone to consider. I would like to be the last, and I'm only the 4th director for Department of Public Works for Kent County. I'd like to be the last director that had to make a recommendation, or doesn't make the recommendation, that we build 150, 200, 300 acre landfill and cause those long-term impacts to our community.
Any other questions or comments? You know, I think one of the things I had an opportunity to be part of was a group of municipal leaders who were able to evaluate the Sustainable Business Park and the process that we were going through. And a couple of things that came up, and this isn't a question that I need an answer to because I know the answer, but more for those that are watching and that are here in the audience. Could you describe the change in government that this would lead to, or change in governance that this would lead to, and also how flow control would work throughout the county? You know, we're not asking haulers to drive from the northern part of the county to the Sustainable Business Park. Could you, this is more for Dar and Steve, talk about the change in governance and also the flow control?
Thank you. So one of the recommendations coming forward from a stakeholder group that we've been convening for over a year is to look at a more representative structure for the Department of Public Works and make sure that, you know, we continue to be as transparent and accountable as possible. And so the new, one of the recommendations that will actually come to the full Board of Commission in the fall would be to slightly augment this board to include some municipal representation from communities that maybe have less than 30,000 people and communities that have more than 30,000 people, and still county commissioners, and then all those members would still be appointed. Part of that is, again, to include more people in this process making these decisions. Adjacent to that is forming a technical committee, and that would really be a broader group of community stakeholders, including the industry and environmental groups and community groups, citizens that want to help make recommendations that would come up to this policy board. We think that's a really strong recommendation. We think that really Waste to Energy has had an advisory board for over 30 years. If we move forward in this model, that advisory board would disband, and we really see this as an opportunity then that's been a really valuable board for our work. So we want the community to help inform some of these decisions. Ultimately, the Board of Public Works is responsible, as Dar said, for setting tip fees, for making decisions on capital expenditures, all that. We want this board to be supported by these community recommendations. So that's kind of how we propose, hopefully moving forward in the fall. The other question around flow control. The real reason we're looking at countywide flow control is, one, to ensure the amount of volume that we need in order to continue to support Waste to Energy and this new facility. It's also to really level the playing field and make sure that everyone that's benefiting from not building another landfill is contributing to that through the tip fee. That doesn't set what a customer will pay. That's up to waste haulers to determine what each customer pays, but the tip fee would be the same. So you're correct. We really see a system of transfer. So we have North Kent Transfer, we have Waste to Energy, we'll have the new bioenergy facility. We really have, through the process that we've been going through, really see that, we call that access equity, to ensure that those haulers and individuals have the opportunity to come to any one of those facilities. Many of you that took the tour saw how we're aligned on 131 and how that works. So really, yes, you're correct. It's not requiring anybody to drive all the way from north to south. It's really using these series of transfer stations, including using Waste to Energy as a transfer station. Waste to Energy transfers out 60,000 tons of material today. So all the technology is sort of there, and all you're doing is sort of mass balancing the system to ensure that the right materials are going to a facility that then can process them.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, one thing I just want to add is I feel like we're at a similar point to where the county was in the 70s and 80s when Vern Ehlers, he actually served as a county commissioner, and he chaired the Board of Public Works, and he's he's in the back of the room there in his plaid suit coat. And, So he represented this area. He served, as a state legislator, and also, represented us in Congress. So he made a, similar decision to reduce, what we were landfilling. And so I feel like we're at that point again. We need to take a look at the options, the technology that we have, the information that we have, and we need to, there is risk involved in this, so we need to take a little bit of risk and, move forward with this. So I see this definitely at a similar point in our solid waste journey. We have the technology available to slow the pace of what we're landfilling and take an alternative path forward. So this is a large project, it's a big project, and it needs a large answer, a big answer to make a difference. So this is our answer to a complex system. It's not an easy lift by any means, but I hope today that a lot of your questions and concerns have been answered, and I think there's still opportunities down the road. We have several members in the audience that I hope, will also share their concerns, their hopes for this, and hopefully we can hear from them today too. So if there's no further questions, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. Our next item is public comment, and with that, I would ask any of you who are interested in public comment to please come forward and state your name and your address, and we'll have 3 minutes to speak. And we won't be able to address your comments right now, but we'll take those into account and be able to address those later on. So whoever would like to start us off, feel free, but public comment. you're welcome to join us. Welcome.
Jeff Meiling, I'm the Door Township Supervisor. The address is 1827 Walnut Street, Door, Michigan, 49323. I want to thank the board for the plan of even coming up with this, because when I first come on, like Dar said, I came on 10 years ago, and I found out our land was being bought up, and I wanted to stop it. I thought, oh, I'm going to do something, and I found out, no, I ain't doing anything. So I was kind of upset, and I kind of looked at, what are we going to do for Door Township? I was going to try to maybe, see what we can do for tipping fees for Door so they get something. And then what will you do with a great big pile of trash when it's all done with? So then, when Dar and Rick and them started coming to talk to me about putting in this sustainable business park, at first I was pretty skeptic, because I don't know how in the world, I worked in the auto industry as an electrician, and we had a lot of equipment, and just to do certain things is very difficult. And I thought, how are you going to sort out diapers and all the other crap that goes through the? But anyway, over the years, I got to where it's a great idea, and Door Township's very excited that we're taking this path, and that my hopes and prayers is that it does go through, and maybe this facility could be a poster child for Michigan and all around us, that we'd be more conscious of what we're doing with our resources. I've been up on top of that hill a bunch of times, and I couldn't believe how much metal, plastics, and that is they're running over and pounding in the ground, and it's just a tremendous amount of resources buried. So I want to thank the Kent County Department of Public Works and the guys that have been working to try to make it happen, because I sure hope it does. So thank you.
Hi there, I'm Rose Spickler. I am from Michigan Sustainable Business Forum. And I set off an alarm. We are a statewide nonprofit, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, but we operate, our headquarters is in Grand Rapids, and we originated in Kent County 29 years ago, and we've worked very closely with Kent County since then. And a couple of different things. I just wanted to talk about a couple of projects that we have worked on and that we are working on. And one of them has already been mentioned a couple of times today, but the MSW, our study in 2016 that took a look at the landfills in Kent County and realized that we are disposing of about $52 million worth of recyclable material that was mentioned. I do want to mention also that we are updating and redoing that study this year. So one of the questions that was asked about, adapting and seeing what is going into landfills now, that is going to, a lot of our research this year is going to go into helping formulate that information. So we're excited about that. We did find during that original 2016 study, and one of our theories is that we'll find again is that food waste was the most prevalent material that was put into the municipal solid waste stream, and that informs a lot of the Sustainable Business Park efforts. So we are obviously in very much support of that. And then one of our current projects also is the West Michigan Sustainable Materials Management Coalition. And through that project, we're working with 8 different counties in the Southwest Michigan region to provide an opportunity for sustainable materials management and helping them come up with different and new plans using education and investment for mutual benefit and to learn from their peers. And one of those one of the counties that we're working with is Kent County, and that was one of the later add-ons to the project and has been the most involved and exceptional stakeholder engagement and a fantastic regional leadership for that project. We're really looking forward to providing a comprehensive report on that next month to this committee, but a lot of the material and a lot of the information that we've been using to comply with, or to help those communities comply with the recent changes to the Michigan Solid Waste Law have kind of involved information for this project as well. And then the last project that I wanted to mention that we're doing that kind of supports and lends itself to this project is the Michigan Food System Waste Reduction Roadmap. And Michigan disposes of more than 1 million tons of food waste through its municipal waste stream each year. And it's estimated that as much as 40% of the food purchased is wasted. A lot of that information kind of came up in different statistics today. But there's enormous economic and environmental value that's lost to waste within our local food system. And it could be retained with efforts to promote less wasteful money-saving practices, retain value. There's obviously a great need for that, and we are in full support of the Sustainable Business Park and this project in particular. We think the bioenergy facility is fantastic, leading-edge example of how to address that waste. So, thank you.
Excuse me. Good morning, I'm Wendy Randall. I am the Director of the Kent County Essential Needs Task Force and a non-voting member of the Kent County Food Policy Council. I live at 908 42nd Street in Wyoming. First, I'd like to express my appreciation for the opportunity to be here and hear the presentation, and additionally provide support for this transformational project. As many people have said, this is an opportunity to dramatically increase recycling, reduce dependence on landfills, create jobs, and boost energy independence for our community. So I think those are some kind of blanket statements that allow us kind of a big picture perspective of this. With the goal of diverting 90% of trash from landfills in our community by 2023, this work is vital to the progression of developing the Sustainable Business Park. It's vital to achieving the waste diversion goal and preventing another generational commitment to landfilling. I think Dar did a great job explaining or describing the long-term impact, and I think that should be sobering for all of us. The bioenergy facility that's been described would allow for large-scale food waste composting, which of course was mentioned by both Tim and Rose. This is a service that is in high demand, both residential and business food waste composting, but it is not available at a large scale currently. And so residents of the community are demanding this type of service, but they have no place to go for this at a large scale. As part of the Essential Needs Task Force Energy Efficiency Committee, one of our focus areas is not simply utility assistance, but also long-term energy equity that impacts home health, safety, and renewable energy options, specifically for those living in low income, but also for all community members. And what we're seeing is a high demand for energy options that have less of a health impact on the community overall. We're seeing that from all ranges, all demographics, and all across the county. In addition, in our Workforce Development Committee, we have had multiple discussions about renewable energy jobs. The people that are most impacted by climate change and climate inequities are committed to being part of bringing sustainability throughout the county. And so there are organizations who are currently working with residents to explore training options to move into renewable energy jobs. And I think that kind of what comes next comment that Tim made regarding not just the jobs available in the bioenergy facility, but also in the subsequent businesses that will be located nearby, will be met with a lot of energy and enthusiasm by residents in the community wanting to work in those fields. Finally, I'd like to add that the Michigan Public Service Committee has been exploring renewable natural gas as a workforce development stream as well, and so that jobs opportunity is supported, as you know, at a high level from the state. Thank you.
Good morning. Good to see you, commissioners. Thank you to the presenters and for this opportunity to learn more about the Sustainable Business Park. My name is Janet Zahn. I'm with the Grand Rapids Climate Coalition. We are a grassroots organization that represents more than 800 individuals and 80 member groups, including nonprofits, faith groups, education institutions, and small businesses. We were formed in 2021 to advocate for carbon neutrality and climate justice in our community. What we have found in the last couple of years of doing this work is that climate change does not recognize city boundaries, and we've been looking for ways to expand our work throughout Kent County. This project feels like a perfect way to do that, and we are in support of all the ways in which this project would reduce our dependence on throwing things away. By the way, there is no away. Everything has to go somewhere. And as noted by others, all the materials that could be diverted and used for other things would be of great value. And especially reducing the organic matter that goes into our landfills, the composting options, and being able to use that organic matter to generate energy and use for other sources feels like a really great way to reduce everything that we throw away. I just recently learned from a presentation by Steve that Michigan is the #1 state in the country for throwing stuff away and burying it. That's not a #1 that I think we would like to be. So in support of this project, we like the idea that it would help our economy, would reduce our mountains of trash, and would also be of environmental benefit. So thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Janelle Vandergrift. I am here representing the Kent County Food Policy Council. We advocate for and promote a local good food system in Kent County, and we operate as an 18-member seated council. When we say local food system, we are referring to growing, harvesting, gathering, selling, buying, processing, preparing, and eating food, as well as food waste in our community. The Michigan Good Food Charter has defined a good food system as accessible, healthy, equitable, diverse, fair, and sustainable. Currently, the Kent County Food Policy Council is working on a food system assessment and plan for Kent County, which some of you may be aware of. National studies suggest that up to 40% of all food produced is wasted. Loss occurs at each step in our food system. While approximately 40% of food waste occurs from the industrial sector, the largest volumes of food waste occur at the consumer or household level. As previously mentioned, there are environmental, social, and economic costs when the food we produce ends up in landfills. As representative of the Kent County Food Policy Council, we want to express our support for alternative food waste solutions as will be implemented in the Sustainable Business Park. We believe that organic materials do not belong in landfills, and we are all responsible for making decisions that ensure a vibrant future and a resilient food system. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Nate Raubiri. I'm a resident of Kent County, District 16. I want to speak in support of this facility and back up Rose's and Wendy's and Janet's and Janelle's comments. The fiction of trash, of pollution, is that we can just put it away somewhere, that there isn't a way. We know that's not the case, that it continues to affect people and places. And we've seen those effects in Kent County and globally as well. Speaking with the Grand Rapids Climate Coalition, like Janet, we know and we've seen the level of concern in our communities about what methane and other greenhouse gases do. They don't go away, we just live with the consequences. It's time to do something different and quickly, since these impacts compound over time. So the quicker we can do something new, we can reduce the emissions, the greater the harm that we can prevent. We know that the current way is not sustainable. And there are too many instances where the can has been metaphorically kicked down the road for somebody else to deal with. here's an opportunity to do something different that also receives, crucially, a favorable environmental justice score, so it doesn't overburden nearby communities. We know that a circular economy is going to be the future, and it has to be, because the status quo is not sustainable. And here's a real opportunity to do that locally. So I support this project, and I hope that you all will be the group that, instead of kicking the can, picks it up and recycles it. Don't leave it for the next generation of policymakers. You have an opportunity to create a better world for future generations, and I hope you'll take it. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to address the commissioners. I'm Steve Ashmead. I'm a family physician. I live at 1503 Pontiac in Grand Rapids, and I represent the Michigan Clinicians for Climate Action as well as Citizens Climate Lobby. And I've had a lifetime interest in public health and our environment. I tried to serve my patients during my career, and now I see it that I can make their health better by addressing the larger public health issues that we must address. By creating this sustainable business park, this will become part of the 360-degree approach to successfully decarbonize our future and create a sustainable environment for Kent County and West Michigan and ultimately our world. On a personal level, I have been impressed that Chris Pakla and several others have given that vision of standing on that landfill. And it's a very disturbing, non-satisfying, this is a geeky, low-tech vision for our future, that we would have to have another landfill. And the idea that we would create the sustainable business park, which would be a high-tech, very exciting way to look at the future for my children and all of my patients' children. Thank you.
I'm Dave Bulkowski, 322 Woodmere in Commissioner Pakla's district in Easttown. A small correction, it's not a metaphorical kicking the can down the road, it's an actual kicking the can down the road. And I was so happy that the supervisor from Door Township started this comments because as some of you know, I sat on that side of the table for a decade, and when Steve Faber first came forward and said, hey, we want to do this, I almost literally pounded the table and said, we have to do more faster.
8 years ago.
It was 8 years ago. Golly jeepers. And more faster, because I thought it was going to be kind of free. That's just how simple I am. And then somewhere in the process, it's like, well, we might break even. And then that stakeholders group that Commissioner Breivy mentioned, I have been part of that for 15, 16 months. We hope we'll have one more meeting one day and be done. And then we got a number a number of months ago that was less than 85 to 95. And when that number came, and we had a different number, and I keep getting sticker shock, but that is that personal sticker shock. And I know, again, I totally agree with everything that's been said thus far. And I know there's going to be some significant disruption in the current way we move our garbage. From our curb to wherever, to the hole, to waste to energy. So there will be disruption, and it's going to cost more for us. The tip fee, as Dar has taught me over and over again, is only a third of the cost, and there still is going to be the transportation and all of that. But at the end of the day, again, I go to Door Township, and that's one of my themes in all of this is if we didn't have waste to energy, and we in the 6 cities didn't pay almost twice as much for our tip fee over the last 30 years, we would have had another landfill in another township somewhere else. So it really is, again, it's going to be real, the disruption, At the same time, I believe it's going to have a really, really good result at the end because of that. And again, the cost, again, I'm a cheapskate. But the cost of not doing this, and we can start talking about environmental justice, and we're finally trying to get our arms around that because waste to energy, the wastewater treatment plant in the city of Grand Rapids, all got tucked next to a low-income neighborhood. And we're not moving those anytime soon. But now, again, we're realizing there is no a way. So anyways, you know I could go on and I won't, which is the surprise. And there's my time. See ya.
Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to comment today? Welcome. Come on up.
I am Jack Brown from Republic Services at 2471 Wilshire. And I just really wanted to, I guess we've heard a lot about the costs and, you know, certainly the 6 cities have seen the bearer of that over the years with the waste to energy charge. But I wanted to give some numbers for thought. So an average school that's not currently in the 6 cities that would be generating 1,200 yards of trash today is going to pay around $30,000. With the tipping fee of $95 a ton, that same school will be paying $73,000. That's a $42,000 increase. So as we talk about the economics and good for economics, we got to keep in mind who's bearing the ultimate cost on this, and that's the consumer. Mr. Green asked the question, if the cost of the build go up, who bears the cost? Not the county, Energia. My guess is it's not even Energia. It's still going to be that consumer through the tipping fee that's going to pay that cost. So we're talking about burdening our communities with a sizable increase. Our largest school district that's currently paying the high cost of the $76 a ton. That school district will be looking at a $63,000 increase in their fees. Rough numbers, but that's based on $95. An average apartment building that's currently not in the 6 cities is going to be paying another $36,000. I think we all know that that apartment building will not absorb that cost. Our constituents, our residents will all be bearing that. And for what? A facility that takes 400 tons and sends 200 straight back out to a landfill. I'm not saying that looking at alternatives is not the way to go, because it is. We know that. But is this the alternative that's best for our community, best for our citizens, and certainly best for businesses that are struggling now anyways with the cost of everything else going up? So you're asking them to take even more of a burden to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Breevy and board members. Wow, got quite the introduction there. Russ with Arrow Waste. We're located at 1296 Chicago Drive in Jenison. Arrow Waste is behind the idea of a sustainable business park. We believe in doing something else with our trash besides burying it. The vision of the plan sounds good to just about everyone. However, this isn't the right plan right now. Since the beginning of the Sustainable Business Park conversation, I personally have brought to the Board of Public Works questions of long-term feasibility due to the facility being built on land designated for landfill. This seems short-sighted. Kent County's current landfill financially supports the rest of the waste system. Without its disposal rates, countywide facilities will go up and increase to residents and businesses. All landfills are not created equal. The long-term liabilities of past landfills are not as big a concerns for landfills built today. Landfills are now created in such a way that contains everything inside the footprint. Financial mechanisms are also built in side to avoid legacy costs, unlike current Kent County facilities that are currently being financed. Department of Public Works seems to be making the bioenergy topic purely philosophical decision, either continuing to bury the trash or moving solely to reusing it into something else. It's not that simple. There are many other considerations, especially in regards to the constituents your votes represent. Is this the correct project for the type of community refuse? Is this the best and only location for this building? Is this project going to cause misunderstood, unnecessary cost burden for every business residents in the area? Is it feasible to meet the slated diversion goals by only having organics biodesert tenant at this time? And how much waste will be transported to Allegan, only then to be transported back out? Even the most solid visions come with an off-ramp. Arrow Waste has asked many times what avenues are available in the unfortunate circumstances that the sustainable business park fails, and we've been met with no true alternative solution. The people in this room all believe in exploring and moving forward in a new way of reusing reference. There are options that can make this happen while both meeting county diversion goals as well as protecting areas, businesses, and residents from skyrocketing rates. A no vote today does not equate to lack of progress tomorrow. This simply isn't a partisan issue. No just means that you don't completely agree with the current plans as it stands. The current plan without an alternative, without a backup or a plan B, without a tenant that takes anything outside of organics, without financial security for those in the district. Another plan is possible, one that puts less trash in the ground and reuses more. Let's be patient enough for that plan. Thank you.
Morning, thank you. Fred Sawyers, 301 Market Avenue. Isn't that your address? 301 Morris Avenue, Grand Rapids, also area manager for waste management. And I thank you for allowing this opportunity. I guess I would start as a resident. I would commend the county and the commissioners and DAR and their work for this vision and this goal of trying to come up with an alternative for managing the waste within the county. I'm a proponent of those visions and what we want to do. I would ask, though, that we just be realistic. There's been some good questions today from the group and the commissioners as far as what the project is, what it involves, and what the costs are. And there's been a lot of discussion on the inevitable spreadsheet that we've been putting together. And I don't envy the group in being able to accurately reflect what the cost of the project would be. And as long as we're voting and viewing the project realistically as we make our path forward, that's all that I would encourage this group to do. There's a lot of variables in, whether it be talking about Energia or the cost of how much material we're going to be able to recycle. It's a good number on the screen as far as being able to get just above that 50% mark, and if we can get there, that would be great. But there is a lot of unknowns as far as commodity value, capital construction cost, cost for managing other materials as it comes through there. When we've started this project and looking at it, it's continued to evolve through this review process, and the construction cost, processing, the cost of the tip fee have continued to go up. And the project that you consider today is likely not the project that will end up happening. And the cost for the tip fees, if you look at the city of Grand Rapids and their digester, or even DAR talked about the changes that we've looked at with the Kent County Recycling and Education Center. It's not only the waste mix change, but the way we process and the cost of the tip fees. So I just continue to ask the questions that you have been on cost and what the county wants to put in that value of the project to get to those goals. So thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to speak. My name is Charles Hauser, 2609 Walnut Grove, Grand Ledge, Michigan. I am the principal at Bridge House Strategies and have worked in the landfill recycling industry for several years. A question that I just want to bring forward, I know there's a lot of stuff related to the climate side, but when we look at what I've heard a lot today is that we got into the trash business. And Ajira said that, the county's in the trash business. This is something that you really have to look at full circle. So we have your landfill, which the goal is to close this at some point. I've heard at some of these meetings that this facility subsidizes some of the other facilities that are within the circle of Kent County's facilities. You have to ask yourself when you want to start a business or be in a business, is it sustainable? And the kind of you look at this, well, necessarily this might not be sustainable in terms of financials. We have a partner that has to be involved, public-private. And then you have to look at, does it benefit the actual folks that use this service? This is an essential service. This isn't where you're going to go to watch a concert or something that's within the county that's exciting. No, I have to pay this amount, and this amount continues to rise for residents and will continue. We have, in 2023, $48.64 for a tipping fee at the landfill, going up to $53.64 in 2024. And this is advertising $100. I mean, that's a huge jump, and we all have to figure that out. And for the haulers, they're the tax collectors. It's not the county. I mentioned this before. I know an argument here is that is PFAS. And the question here is, where does PFAS go now? Stuff still, I know Commissioner Green has brought that concern forward. It seems to be airborne now that this is going to be above ground. Is that something that has been looked at? Something that you want to consider at this time with the current statute or the way landfills work these days? That's the safest place for PFAS to be collected. Just something to bring forward. Back to the business, the bankruptcy issue. I understand, we've been told that it goes back and forth and that things seem to be in good place there, but you're putting flow control in place, and you have to in order to make this a sustainable project. If flow control wasn't in there, it would probably not work. That is what happened over in California, is that LA didn't follow their mandate that they had put in place. Something to just think about and make sure that works. So speaking of flow control, it seems like the waste energy facility is kind of the reason that this entire flow control is being put in place. Is there some issues there? I just have that question with some of the cities not liking that idea, and there seems to be a rush to make sure that the entire county can now be in flow control. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, are there any other comments from the commissioners at all? One thing I would just like to add is, we're at a decision point here, and we can continue doing the same thing where we know that there are, contaminants that can go in the landfill, and we can continue bearing that. That's, one option. The other option is to think big, do something different, something that we know we have the technology for, and something that will, serve our community in a better way, and we don't have to live with the legacy costs that we currently have with the landfills. This is something new, something different. I'd encourage you all to consider that, and if there's any questions that arise in the meantime, please let me know, let Dar or Steve know, and we'd be happy to address that. And I think Commissioner Yunker has additional thought here.
There. I listened to comments, and one of the comments that kept coming back is we're passing the cost on to the consumer. All right, they're taking, I'm a consumer. I'm going to pay more. But I'm the one creating the trash. The consumers are creating the trash. So the fix is with the people creating the trash. I think that's a fair system. If we don't want to pay more, then let's quit creating so much trash. Let's be more conscionable. of what we do with our stuff. And we've chosen not to. We're a disposable society. And that's sad, it really is, right down to our vehicles. So we have a responsibility to manage this trash that we as a society are creating. Is there cost? Is there going to be more cost? The only way to curb that is quit creating the trash. Pretty simple, and we're all in control of it. So, is my trash hauler, who was represented here, is he responsible to collect my costs? Yeah, that's his business model. I'm a businessman. I had a company. I had to collect money, and I paid the taxes that were put on that products that I did. So every business collects tax. Every business pays tax, and they collect it from the consumer. It's one of the way our systems work. This is not a negative system, and I just really want to reiterate, we are in control as consumers of what we're doing here, and if we want this to go away, we better learn to live much differently. But anyway, I would like to really encourage this board to take this serious, and let's start a new system. Let's start a new way. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any other commissioner comment? Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief, but I just wanted to thank everybody that came and participated today, even if you just took the time to be here. We have a number, and I'd like to thank Energia too for being here for the conversation. Obviously, we've got some folks in the room who tend to be on different sides of issues, who are on different sides of this issue, but we always have pretty good attendance at DPW meetings, but this is an exceptionally big group. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time. Whether you're an advocate from the community or a hauler or somebody in the industry, all the input is really helpful as we work to make what's a really important decision for our future. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is definitely a larger crowd than what we normally have, and I know that there's likely some viewers online, and we can all go ahead and rewatch this too on YouTube. But I really appreciate the time and effort everyone put into being here today and answering our questions and concerns along the way. So this has definitely been a long process, and I look forward as we wrap this up and move forward with the project. So thank you for everything today. And like I said, if there's questions down the road, please let us know. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.